Hello there everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for joining me today. Now today's video on Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia is going to be another Should You Pull video, this time based around Caius's banner. Now Caius will come with a new event as well as Dimensions End 10, and we'll be taking a look at the events themselves as well as the characters that are featured on the banner, which include Noel's EX realization and Caius, who's a brand new character and a brand new kit and all that good stuff. So if that's something that you guys are interested in, then stay tuned and keep on watching. As always, everybody, don't forget to check out all of the social media links in the description box below, including Twitter, Twitch and Discord. As I stated earlier in the week, I've got a really big stream coming up on Sunday where I'll be playing Opera Omnia on a brand new account for 12 hours without pulling a single time on any banner whatsoever. So if that's something that you guys would like to come and watch, then I'd love it if you come and support me on Twitch this Sunday. I do also leave my weekly schedule on YouTube, Twitter, Discord, all that good stuff, so do check those out as well. And of course with Patreon, I always shout out one of my patrons so that I can give a big massive thank you to all the people that want to support the channel further, and today that person is going to be Mega Matt. So thank you ever so much for your support. It's really lovely that people feel that the channel is worth putting into for Patreon. And if you would like a bespoke title card, just like you can see here with Mega Matt, as well as other privileges, including things on Discord, stuff like that, then definitely check out the link in the description box for Patreon. And lastly, don't forget to check out DissidiaDB.com, the Tombury Troop, DissidiaInfo.com, and all of the other content creators out there for Opera Omnia, because all of us would love your support just as much as me. So as I said earlier, we're going to be starting by talking about the event itself when it comes to Caius's banner. Now Caius's event is a little bit of an oddball because it revolves around Caius's mechanics a lot more than most events do with their banner characters. And honestly, Noel being a banner character is a little bit strange as well, because while he does bring something to the table for this event, and I'll get to that in a little while, what his kit is most revolved around is breaking units. And these guys are very difficult to break because they put up a shield like partway through the fight that's very similar to Zack's. Like it basically, if your damage that you're dealing is under a certain percentage of their initial bravery, then you're not dealing damage at all. However, their initial bravery is so high that it's very difficult to deal damage through their shields at all. So basically what you want to be bringing is characters that don't necessarily need to be doing bravery damage in order to deal HP damage. So supports will work very well here. And the reason I say that Caius's mechanics are more revolved around than others is because Caius brings Doom to the table with this event. Now Doom breaks a unit instantly after 2 turns of the debuff being there. So these guys are very susceptible to debuffs. And that's basically there so that it can break them, get rid of the shield, get rid of the stuff, so make it so you can deal brave damage again. But if you don't have Caius, then you're going to need to think of alternate ways around it. Now the teams that I was looking at bringing, I think Sarah would be a very strong pick for this particular event because she has stacking poison, which is invaluable to a unit that can't really be brave damaged, because at least they're going to be draining bravery through the nose, and you're not going to be able to they're not going to be able to hit you as hard. The enemies also resist ranged, so do bear that in mind. So if you want to reduce initial bravery, then characters like Vincent will work quite well because he can imperil the enemies and enchant himself with the element needed, so he can reduce initial bravery while still being able to deal some damage to them. So that's an option for you as well. If you're in place of Caius, you're going to want characters that can either do a lot of damage in a short space of time without having to break the enemies. So somebody like X-Death will work very well here because of his gravity-based attacks. The fact that he doesn't actually break units anyway, he'll do really well here. Characters that like Warrior of Light that can just, gain a bravery as opposed to have to drain it from dealing bravery damage will work very well here. Lan and Rain is actually a very strong pick here as well because their EX actually instantly breaks the units regardless of how much bravery they have. So they're actually going to be very strong here as well. I've seen a lot of Vanille used in this event as well, primarily for the debuffs that she brings, like lowering their defense right down, lowering their attack, debuffing any buffs they put on themselves. So she's an interesting pick as well. Hope will also work very well here because, again, he gains bravery more than he gets it from attacking. So he deals a large amount of damage. You could easily take an FF13 themed team here where you could take Hope, Vanille, and Sarah, and that would work really well. But you're not going to want to bring characters like Aranea, Vayne, or Lightning because they can't break a unit in this particular fight very easily, let alone re-break one. So bringing characters like that, especially considering that they resist ranged, Aranea is really not going to do very well in this particular fight. Additionally, I did want to mention the fact that these enemies are also weak to wind, so the thing that Noel is meant to bring along to this particular event is the fact that he has gravity-based attacks so that he can keep their bravery down to a manageable level, and he also has wind-based attacks, so they are weak to him. But honestly, another character that I think will work very well here is Galoof, which you could easily replace, like, you know, any of the synergy characters for in this particular fight, because pretty much all of the attacks that the ogres will bring are physical, so he's just going to dodge them all, so you're not going to have to worry about your defenses nearly as much if you bring Galoof along. Edge could fulfill a very similar function, where he's just dodging and making sure that your party members stay safe, so he's a character that you could bring along as well. Now, in addition to Caius' event, we actually have Dimensions End Entropy Tier 10 coming along this week as well. So I wanted to give a quick overview as to the sort of characters that will work really well for this and the sort of things you can come to expect from it. This event is one where you want to be expecting to take a lot of HP damage. There's 5 waves and all of them will deal AoE Brave HP damage, so it's definitely something to keep in mind that if you can reduce the amount of damage you're taking, or at least heal back the damage that you're taking, it's going to do you really well here. The main parts of this event that I want to point out is with the final wave, with Dark Bahamut. He will counter your summons after you finish summoning with a Mega Flare, which is going to do ridiculous amounts of damage, so do be careful of Bahamut, and when you summon during this event, either save it for when you know you're going to kill him at the end, like before the summon ends, or use your summon in a different wave entirely. And then with the fourth character in the event, the Osteoavis, he likes to inflict a lot of debuffs on you while dealing large amounts of damage. The end ball attack is one that we've seen before, and it can be really vicious if left unchecked. So if you can bring along somebody that can either mitigate debuffs, somebody like Selfie or Ignis, that will work quite well for you here. Or equally, you can bring delay characters, as they're extremely potent in this event. So somebody like Leo or Vayne, just to make sure that these single target bosses don't realistically get their turns off pretty much at all, then they will do very well for you. In terms of the characters that you're going to want to bring along for Dimensions End 10, then realistically you want people that can make sure that you're not taking quite as much damage as you would be normally. So if you have Hope, he's going to be perfect for you in this particular event because he has literally everything you would want. You want high AoE damage for the first few waves, you want your defenses to be high, and you want the ability to heal, and Hope does all of those things. Leo is equally as powerful as Hope because he can do all of those things against a single target. He has massive delay capabilities, which is very helpful. He has HP regen, he has auras. He is the other character that will do exceptionally well in this event. So those two are definitely ones that you're going to want to keep an eye out for. But also, you're going to want to try and keep a strong AoE damage dealer along with you, like especially if they have delay capabilities. Somebody like Vayne or Aranea is going to be perfect for you, or Lightning. All of those characters just focus a target down, make sure that they don't get a turn. So basically, if you can stop your opponents from being able to deal the massive amounts of HP damage that they want to deal, then your need for healing and things like that is going to be lessened, which is great. Porum, if you've managed to pick her up this week, is actually a very strong character as well for this because of her ability to make sure that you're not taking damage nearly as much as you could be. Debuffers work very well here, so Caius from this event will work very well here because basically making sure that they just have as weaker possibilities as possible, and poison, things like that, anything that stops them from dealing lots of damage will help a lot here. Fran for a very similar reason as well, and then just any good support character, if you wanted to take somebody other than Hope, will work here. Like Penelo is really good here because for the same reasons as Hope, because she can still make it so that you're taking less damage because you're healing a lot of things through regen walls. You can increase your offensive capabilities, and you can make sure that they've got the bravery down to where you want it to be through intercession. So she actually has a lot going for her as well. Noel is actually a pretty good character for this as well, and even at 0 out of 3, I spoke about Noel in my budget heroes, and I will speak about this when I get to his character sort of an analysis in a moment. But he actually works pretty well at just 0 out of 3, and I've seen quite a lot of clears for him, so he might be somebody that you might want to consider as well. I'd also like to extend a big thank you to Tombury Troop with their infographic relating to Dimensions End 10 as well, because as you can see here, I've cut a little bit of it off just to show you guys quite how many different characters are usable for Dimensions End 10. So a massive thank you to those guys for giving us all this information. If you want, then you can use this as an example for teams that you could yourself build. There's loads of characters in there that don't have ingots put into them that work really well. So honestly, Dimensions End can be quite scary at times, but there's so many characters that you can use for this that you can go with completely different characters to any that I or any other content creator could recommend. So So now we're going to come to the part of the video where we're going to discuss the characters that are featured on the banner. Now Lyse only comes with her 15 and 35 and nothing particularly new to her kit, so we're not going to talk about Lyse all that much, but realistically if they don't have any EX in this banner, you're not really pulling for that character. So we're going to move on to Null. Now Null doesn't get a rework or anything, he just gets a realization on his EX weapon, but quite frankly his kit was pretty overloaded when he came out the first time around, so he doesn't really need much of a rework at all. But his realization is kind of actually. Like it's quite nonchalant. It doesn't really do an awful lot for his kit. He doesn't gain any attack out of this, as I spoke about when I did his analysis during my 0 out of 3 budget heroes list. And there's a reason for that. His attack is one of the highest in the game, and so therefore he doesn't really need to gain much more. But what he does get, if you give him a book, then he gets extra 20% overflow on everything he does, as long as he has his Will to Seize the Future buff that he gets from using Meteor Javelin. But when you use ingots on him, he starts with his buffs. He gets a bit of max bravery. He also gets a nice amount of brave potency addition to Meteor Javelin with 3 out of 3, which is nice but unnecessary considering that Meteor Javelin already ignores defense, so it's actually very strong already. If you're wanting to use Null, then he's a character that's very good for using Tempest Strike, for re-breaking an enemy. He's got a little bit of elemental stuff in his kit. He's got a bit of gravity in his kit through Shaving Slash, which is actually exemplified through his 3 out of 3 realization, because his Fear Siphon becomes a Fear Siphon Plus, which reduces target's bravery to 3/5 before he does 4 hits, so he's pretty much guaranteed to break things as long as he's dealing a decent amount of damage. And he gets, lowers action delay when attacking a broken target and nullifies action delay, but doesn't nullify the turn count, so bear that in mind as well. He doesn't get a free turn when he breaks something with a Fear Siphon Plus, he just gets an extra turn, so it's not quite as good as it sounds. Although, that being said, he's a very strong damage dealer. He works very well at 0 out of 3. I wouldn't say that his Sphere's decent, but it's not worth going into sort of having to give him 3 ingots in order to get that for him. I recently purpled Yang because of stream donation goal being met and things like that, which I'm very thankful for. But his Sphere is not enough to make him worthwhile, and the same could probably be said of Noel. Not to the same extent as Yang, but Noel is a pretty good character at 0 out of 3. He's not a character I would invest 3 ingots into. Now Caius, much like his event, is odd. He has some very interesting things in his kit that work in a very odd way. So the first thing I want to talk about is his Heart of Chaos buff. Now I want to point out that the role that Caius plays is as a debuffer. His kit doesn't really show him that way. His kit's a little bit all over the place. His Heart of Chaos buff is basically Last Stand plus. Like, if he's about to die, he loses his Heart of Chaos buff and instead regenerates a load of health. And he has a little bit more max brave and attack while he has it. It's cute, it's nice, it's very flavorful to his character. It's not why you would pull for him, it's just a nice extra to have. I guess him having a Last Stand is kind of useful, but he's not a tank, so it's not the reason that he's there. But Pulsar Burst and Eye of Bahama are both attacks that increase his stacks of an ability called Body and Soul, which recovers his Brave and HP, so he's got regens. They are also, once he gets to max stacks, he gets plus versions of these attacks. Now, Eye of Bahama is a particularly interesting one because it inflicts max Brave down, defense down, poison, and doom, but they've all got the subtitle Chaos on them, which makes them no different to the normal versions of those debuffs, but they are framed debuffs instead. So that makes it a lot harder for enemies to then buff themselves. So if an enemy buffs itself a lot, then one thing I do like about Caius is his ability to prevent them from being able to go too far with generic buffs. So that's something that you can bear in mind for that. And then when you've got Body of Soul at 5 stacks, he gets 4 hit brave melee brave HP attack, and then Doom, as I stated when it came to the event itself, once that expires, after 2 turns, it instantly breaks the enemies, which is nice. And then Set Doom Crush, which is level 65, does the same thing with a brave HP attack, which is great for a 65, and it also is only 1 turn's worth of Doom, so it's going to break them the next turn that they have. He gets a Brave Attack Plus and an HP Attack Plus, which are fairly generic once he's got his stacks up to full, and Pulsar Burst is actually a pretty strong attack with the extensions and everything, with 8 hits. So that's not too bad either. And then Aya Bahama, once you've got his 60 passive, becomes an AoE attack, which more importantly than anything to do with the damage, it inflicts debuffs on all enemies. But he gets 50% splash damage when he's got his 5 body and soul stacks as well, which is very nice as well. Now the reason that I say that Caius' kit is a little bit all over the place is because his EX attack doesn't fit with the rest of his kit at all. And the biggest drawback to it, despite the fact that it's actually a really powerful attack, is its horrendous recast rate. Its recast rate is very slow. It's going to take you a long time to be able to use this multiple times, which is a real shame because it's as strong as it is. So Inferno is a 5-hit AoE Brave HP attack that has 150% max bravery overflow, which obviously gets better when you put ingots and stuff into it. It initiates a launch and makes it so that other enemies can be launched immediately after, which is basically the same as Lael's EX. Now, Lael's EX, the reason that Lael's EX works, and Lael isn't even that great a character, the reason his EX works is because of how frequently you can use it. It's a fast-casting, repeatable launch. Now, when you put Power Stones into it, you get an extra framed buff, which raises his stats and gives him more duration on his self-inflicted buffs for 2 turns. And then when you start putting ingots into it, he starts with all of that stuff straight away. His HP attack pluses and HP attack and bravery attack pluses continually grant him more body and soul stacks, so he's not going to run out of them very easily because pretty much everything he does grants these body and soul stacks. So don't worry about them running out too frequently. And then when you use Inferno with its maxed out, it becomes a double attacker, so 4-hit AoE Brave HP attack that delays the main target for a turn, so the one that you're launching, which is always very useful when you're doing a launch. And you'll be able to get bravery in a very similar fashion to how Dark Knight Cecil's Dark Cannon works. So when you his Valiant Blow. When you launch, you'll give bravery to your party members, and therefore they'll be able to do their HP attacks during the launch and get a lot more damage in there. The reason I'm not so keen on it is because it just doesn't fit with the rest of his kit. It just because it's so slow. If he had it at a faster recast rate, he'd probably be really, really overpowered. But because his kit doesn't really help launching in any way particularly, or get anything out of launching, as we'll see Caius do later down the line, it doesn't really fit. It's a strong attack, sure, and Caius is really cool, and he does work. But when we've got characters coming up that are like masters of their art, so we've got support characters coming up like Alphino and Arciella that are ridiculously overpowered in their field. We've got characters like Caius coming out who are like launch characters supreme. Caius just doesn't massively stand out. The main thing I do like about Caius, like I said earlier, is the fact that his debuffs are all framed. Now this is a double-edged sword. His debuffs are all framed, which means it's very hard for your opponents to then gain bravery or buffs or any kind of things that way. But equally, because they're framed debuffs, if you take anyone else that does any kind of debuff to a fight with Caius, they're not going to play very well together, particularly if they do more than one. And the debuffs that Caius inflicts, except for Doom, aren't actually all that strong. They're very, very small. They're like small max brave buffs, like 20%, things like that. They're not huge. They are useful, and because Caius hits quite as hard as he does, it isn't a bad thing. But I just think that because we've got such strong characters coming out in the near future, it does make Caius a little less appealing. So now we come to the big question, the question everyone wants to know when it comes to these videos. Should you pull on Caius and Noel's banner? Honestly, it's a weird one. I like Caius. I kind of like Noel as a budget hero, but I don't really like this banner. Like, I think that if you have a lot of tickets and gems available to you, it wouldn't hurt to pull on this banner because they are both usable within Dimensions End. They're both good. Like, Caius is obviously the best character for his own event, having access to Doom and things like that. It's a good banner, but I think that May is the month in which we should be trying to save up resources as much as we physically can in order to be able to get through June and July as smoothly as possible. And I do think that Caius, because his kit is just so piecemeal, it just I'll have a little bit of launch, I'll have some debuff, I'll have some power. It doesn't quite add up. I think that he doesn't need an awful lot to be really powerful, but I think that waiting for him to get an LD later down the line, or possibly even a burst weapon, he is technically 13's main villain, it might be more beneficial in the same way as X-Death. Like, Caius, yeah, there's a great comparison is Caius to X-Death. I didn't pull on X-Death's banner because I just didn't feel that he was worth the resources compared to a lot of other characters. He's not bad. Caius is definitely not a bad character. He's actually very strong in the right circumstances. But if an enemy, like, resists debuffs, then he's useless. If an enemy, like, can't be launched, he's less powerful. There's a lot of little things that, because his kit is so widespread, there's a lot of things that if an enemy resists any one thing, he's significantly less powerful. And then Null, I would not pull on this banner for Null. I wouldn't, because if you got him along the way to getting Caius, great. You can give him a book and he'll be useful in Dimension's End, he'll be useful in various other bits of content, he'll be chaos viable. That's great. He's not going to break the game for you. He does have re-break mechanics in Tempest Strike, like I said earlier, and he's nice, but he's not a character that I would massively go out of my way for. So honestly, with the banner in general, I think that if you have a large surplus of tickets, you could spare a few, and I may do the same. Like, if I get bored, I might throw a few tickets at this banner, but I certainly wouldn't go too heavily into it, and I certainly wouldn't spend gems on it. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you all very much for joining me today. Let me know in the comments below whether you plan to pull for Caius or Noel, whether you plan to use them in Dimension's End, whoever else you plan to use for Dimension's End, or for Caius' event itself for the Chaos, with a weird event with like shields and no bravery damage and supports being your primary damage dealers. It'll be a really interesting thing to see from everybody else. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell for notifications for any future videos on Dissidia or Opera Omnia. And don't forget to come and find me on Twitch, where I'll be playing through Caius' event live on stream, as I do with every event the morning that it comes out. Being in the UK, sometimes timing can be a bit of an issue, but I do my best to try and make sure that I cater to everybody in the best way that I can. Anyways, that's going to be it from me. Thanks again, everyone, and I'll see you all soon. Take care.